Hello everybody and welcome to this instruction video. In this video I'd like to show you how to make the Biesbosch blanket. Now this blanket is made up out of a series of squares that are joined and then you work a border around them. Now you see here the original blanket, which is made with stone washed XL yarn, and these are nice big squares that work up fast, and the blanket works as a whole also works up fast. Now I won't be able to show you everything for this blanket in terms of the original yarn because I've used up all my yarn, but I will show you all the elements that for making this this blanket. Now exactly yarn amounts and colors and layouts of all these squares, that's available in the written pattern. You can find a link for that in the video description. What I'm going to be showing you in this video is on a small sample, so on this little sample here, I'm going to show you how to make the square, how to do the join, and how to work the border. So all the elements that make up this blanket. The Biesbosch blanket is my own design, and I'm really proud of this blanket because it's just such a fun blanket to make. These squares work up fast and they give a really fun effect. I've used various colors of Scheepjes stone washed XL yarn and river washed XL yarn in pink colors and yellows and greens and all kinds of colors. And to see a photograph of this again, just check the written pattern to see what the blanket looks like as a whole. But let's get started. I'll show you the squares, the join, and the border. Round one, any color you choose. I'll put a slip knot on my hook and then start with a chain 3. That's 1, 2, 3, then close on the first chain to form a ring with a slip stitch. There we go. I'm going to work in that little gap in there, but first a chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first 2 chains count as a double and then a chain 3 space. Now in that little gap work a double, so yarn over, and then that's not in the gap, in there. So you see there in the little hole, that's a double, and then chain 3, 2, 3. I'm going to do this 3 times. So that was once, so another double in the same gap, which is number 2, and then a chain 3, and then another double in there in that same little hole, and a chain 3. 1, 2, 3. There you go. And then you've got 3 chain spaces here already, but actually this is a double and a chain 3, so we're going to close on the second chain, counting up. So in that second one there, close with a slip stitch. There we go. And now you have 1 double crochet on each edge, and then the chain 3 spaces, they are your corner, and then you're ready for round 2. Round 2, I'm going to start by just going with a slip stitch to the chain 3 corner space. There we go. Now we're going to do a cluster, chain 3 cluster in the chain space here. Now we're having a starting cluster, so that's going to be a chain 2, then yarn over, in the chain space drop a loop, take it off, and again yarn over, draw up a loop and take it off. 3 loops on your hook, take them all off. That was a beginning cluster. Then chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm just going to move this cluster aside a little bit because we need to do another cluster next to it. And so in the same space, so yarn over, drop a loop, 1, 2, and the third one, 3, and this is then a full cluster, so not the beginning, and then again yarn over and take off all 4 loops. And this is your first corner made. Now the edge, chain 2, 1, 2, then here in the double we're going to work a double, so yarn over, so in that stitch there work a double crochet, again chain 2, 1, 2, and then come to your next corner space, so chain 3 space here, work a cluster, chain 3 and a cluster, so it's yarn over, so this is the same as you've just worked in the first corner. That means 3 legs, and then you need a bit more yarn, and then you take them all off in one go. Let's move them up a little bit so that we have room for a second one, chain 3, and then work another cluster right next to it. 1, 2, 3, and take them all off. There. Now this corner you just worked, this one here, is the same as one we started with. So in these chain 3 spaces, those are your new corners. So this little bit, do this 1, 2 more times, and on your second repeat you'll of course just do the chain 2 and then close, but I'll just show you that. So do this 1, 2 more times, and I'll just see you for the closing. Now I'm almost all the way around, just work my last corner here. So I'm going to do a chain 2. Here on this stitch, and this is the chain 2 from the first round. On there work a double on there, then chain 2, and now come to your beginning cluster here on that stitch, close with a slip stitch. There we go. And now these chain 3 spaces, those are your corners, and we're going to build the corners again in round 3. Round 3, I'm going to move with a slip stitch to the chain space, this chain 3 space, and we're going to work a new corner in here. Start again with the beginning cluster. First chain 2, and then 1, 2 legs, and take them off. Now a chain 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, so that's important, 4 chains. I'm just going to move it up again because we do need another cluster in that same space. That's 1, 2, 3. So this is a full cluster, and take it off. And this is your first corner. Now the straight edge, the repeat. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Going to skip the cluster and come. So you've got here these chain 2 spaces with a double crochet in the middle. Going to work a double crochet 2 together over those 2 spaces. So yarn over. So come to the first space and draw up a leg and take off 2 loops. Yarn over. Come to the next space. So you're going to skip the double crochet in between. Come to the next space. Take off 2 loops. You can see you've got a leg either side of that double crochet, and then take them all off. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and now come to your next corner. Here this is the chain 3 space, and we're working the same corner, so that's a cluster stitch, a chain 4, and a cluster stitch. And so that's your first cluster, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to move everything up a bit because you do need to make space for that second cluster. 1, 2, 2, 3 legs and take them off. And you can now see how you've done the first edge and how this corner is the same as that corner. So work this on this edge and this edge also, and then I'll just see you back here when you've worked the double crochet 2 together, just show you the closing. Almost all the way around, so I've just worked the double crochet 2 together here. Now chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then again on the first cluster stitch here, close there with the slip stitch. Then that completes round 3. Round 4, I'm going to move again with a slip stitch to the chain space. There we go. I'm going to start with a corner. Chain 2. This counts as your first double. And now work 2 more doubles in the corner. 1 and 2. Chain 2. And here in the same corner work 3 doubles. 1, 2, 3. So your corner is 3 doubles, chain 2, 3 doubles. I'm going to come here to these 2 chain 3 spaces you have here, and we're going to work 4 double crochets in each of those. That's 1, this is 2, 3, and 4, and then come to the next space and work 4 in there also. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next up is the corner. In this chain space, 3 doubles, chain 2, and 3 doubles. So 1, 2, 3 doubles, chain 2, 1, 2, and then 3 more doubles. 1, 2, and 3. And this corner is the same as the one we started with. So repeat on the other 3 edges, and when you've done your last 4 doubles, we're going to close with an invisible join, and I'll show you how to do that. Almost all the way around, we just need to do the closing. So I've done the 4 doubles there. I'm going to cut my yarn and then open up this loop for the invisible join. And I'm going to thread my yarn on a needle. I know some people do this with a hook. I do this with a needle. So thread your yarn on your needle. And now we're going to come to the second stitch. So here's the chain 2, and that counted as our first stitch. So we're going to come to the second stitch. That's the first full double. Insert your hook, your needle, and pull through. I'm going to pull this a little bit tight so that you bring the 2 together. Then come to your last stitch worked and insert your needle from top to bottom into that stitch. And I'm going to let it come out towards the back. I'm just going to grab that loop there. That's just to secure it a little bit further. So this is how my needle is in there at the moment. So you can't see it from the front. That's important. And then I'm going to pull this yarn through. And these 2 loops, they make your new stitch. And just pull them tight until they are the same size as the stitches to the left, to the right. That's the invisible joint just made. Stitch to either side, to the left and to the right. I'm going to work away this yarn tail, and then we're ready for the next round. Round 5, a new color yarn on my hook. I'm going to start in any corner space with a standing single crochet. So in that space, work a standing single crochet. Now work another single in there. And I'm just going to mark that stitch because that's going to be a new corner. So mark that stitch with a stitch marker. On there. And another single in the same space. So you've got 3 singles in there, and you've marked this, the center one. Then the straight edge, we're going to work a single crochet in the back loop of all of these stitches. So in the back of every one of these singles, or every one of these stitches I should say, work a single. So that's one until you get to the corner. So only in the back loop. This is 3. You're going to be doing 14 of these. And that will bring you to the corner. And this is the last one. So now you've worked 14 singles. Next is again the chain space, and there we're going to work 1, 2 singles. Just going to mark that last stitch worked there, and then another single crochet. So again 3 singles, and then marking the center one with a stitch marker. And these 2 corners are of course exactly the same. So repeat everything we've just done on the next 3 edges. When you're here, I'll just show you how to close on that standing stitch. I'm all the way around, and I'm just going to close on the first stitch. So here's the slip knot, and here's the first single. I'm just going to go next to that slip knot and close there. There we go, with a slip stitch. Just going to slip stitch to the marker. There we go. And now you've completed the rounding. Now turn your work so you're going to have the wrong side facing for the next round. Round 6, you have the wrong side facing at this point. I'm going to do a chain 1. This does not count as a stitch. Then in the marked stitch, so there where the stitch marker is in, I'm just going to remove the marker because that'll make life easier for me. And in there, work 3 singles in total. So 1, 2, and 3. Now I'm just going to mark that second one. So you see you've got 2, then you place the marker. This is your new corner. Now this straight edge, we're going to work a single crochet on each of the 16 stitches. And this first one, if you just roll your work forward, it could be hard to miss that first one. Because you see here, this here looks like your first stitch, but it's not. That's actually your second stitch. Your first stitch is here. And sometimes it's actually easier to grab the slip stitch, which is there on the front, to use that one, as opposed to this stitch, which is here, which is kind of hidden here. So in here, there's your first stitch. Now this, like I said, this is the stitch, but it looks maybe a little wocky and wobbly. So if you take the slip stitch, that might be easier. But either way, make sure you insert your hook something that is your first stitch there. That's your first stitch, 1, then roll your work forward to see the others, 2, 3, 4, and continue until you're to the marked stitch. So you're going to work 1 single crochet on every stitch, and then I'll see you back here when you're just before the marked stitch. On the other side here, so I've worked 16 single crochets. Next up is the marked stitch, and this stitch again gets 3 singles, and the center one is the corner. So I'm going to work 1, 2 singles in that stitch, then mark this last one worked there, and now work another stitch, a third stitch in the same position. So this is your new corner made. And now again do everything we just did. So on the first stitch, now this one is slightly easier, first stitch there is easier to find. So work 2 now, and again work 16. So 16 doubles until, or 16 singles until you're here to the corner, work 3 in there. Again up to this corner, work 3 in that corner, and then 16 all the way until you're here, and then I'll see you here for the first, just to close to that first stitch. I'm almost all the way around, well actually I am, and next up is closing to the first stitch. Now there's the first stitch, there's a chain 1 there somewhere, but don't worry about it. You're really going to go to the first stitch here, this first single, and insert your hook in there and close with a slip stitch. And now move to the marked stitch again with the slip stitch. Now turn your work, to have the right side facing for the final round. Round 7, I'm just going to remove, well let me first do the chain 1, again does not count as a stitch. And then here in the marked stitch, so where you're currently in there, work 3 single crochets. So in that stitch where the marker was, it's 1, 2, and 3. There you go. So 3 single crochets. Along the first edge, 18 singles, so 1 in every stitch. And here's again the same as on the previous round. There is your first stitch, and this stitch is hard to get into. There we go. Actually I've split my yarn, that's not the entire stitch, that's only like 2/3 of it. There. So it's slightly to the back, slightly hidden. That's 1. Then here is 2, and I'm going to work a single crochet on every stitch till I'm to the marked stitch. So work a single on every stitch till you're to the marked stitch. In the marked stitch you're going to work 3 singles, so it's the same as here, 3 single crochets, and then come down again, 1 on every stitch, 3 in the marked corner, and in this corner also. Go all the way around, a single crochet on every stitch, 3 in the corner, and when you're here I'll see you back to show you the invisible join again. I'm all the way around, just worked in that last stitch, and again an invisible join. So I cut my yarn and pull this loop through, so basically fastening off, thread the yarn on the needle, and now the same procedure as last time. We come to the second stitch, just there, because that first single crochet, that's of course our first full stitch. So you come to the second stitch, and now we're going to basically create a new stitch on top of the stitch we just made. So come to the last stitch worked. Again, I'm just going to insert my hook to the back and just catch an extra loop there, and that's just to secure it a little further. There. And pull through. Now what's important at this point is that this new loop that you're making, these 2 loops, that they fall over the single crochet that's there to the bottom. You see now they're on either side, and those are the 2 loops from the single crochet, but you want these 2 that we just made, that they are on top. So fashion them, they're the right size, and there we go, that they nicely fall on top of the stitch. Work away this yarn tail as well as the standing yarn tail, and then we're ready to continue. Now you've just worked one square. You need to work a few more, and depending on how large you want the blanket to be, you'll work as many squares as you want. So in the pattern I said how many squares I used to make my blanket, but if you want to use a different amount, that's of course absolutely fine. Now for the video purposes, I've actually got 4 squares here. I'm going to show you how to join these 4 squares, but it's exactly the same even if you have more. So I'm just going to show you the method for joining the squares. To join the squares, what we're going to be doing is we're going to first work a horizontal join in this direction, and then we're going to work a vertical join in this direction. Now, I'm going to be showing you a 2 by 2 square, but of course if you've got more squares here, then the method is the same. So I'm going to show you how to start, how to cross over to the next squares, and then how to finish. And then the same will apply to the other direction also. And the method that we'll be using is a slip stitch join. So whichever hook size you've been using up till now, for example, I've been using a 3.5mm on my squares to make my squares, go up a hook size for the join itself. So I'm going to use a 4mm hook for the join. What I'm also going to be doing is, if you were to make this real blanket, you'd use the same color yarn as that you've used to make the squares. So for me it would be this off-white color, but then you really won't be able to see what I'm doing. So for the join, I'm going to be using a nice purple color, but that's just for video purposes. So if you're making the blanket, use the same color as the squares. But I'll be using a nice purple so that you can really see where the joins are. To join the squares, I've got a new color yarn on my hook. And what we're going to do is, you've got 3 stitches either side in the corner. That's where we're going to start. So you've got the center one of the 3 on this side and the center one on that side. Now place your yarn below your work. And then we're going to grab the center 3, the center 3 stitches, grab the back loop. So I'm going to, if I show you here, you see it's 1, 2, 3, that center one, and grab the back loop. Then come to the other square, and it's got the same idea. You see here, 1, 2, 3 stitches in the middle, and grab that center one also in the back loop. And your yarn is below your squares. And this is, basically I did this between the first one, so I fold it to the bottom, and now I insert my hook. Okay. I'm going to bring them all together. So I've got 3 loops on my hook here, so my setup and the next 2 from the squares. Then yarn over and pull through all 3 of these loops, and that's your first stitch joined. Now the next stitch, you take the inside loop, so one that's closest to the join. You come to the next stitch. See, so this is the one that you just worked, so come to the next stitch, yarn over and pull through. The next one, the inside loops either side and pull through. And work these stitches loose. So you've already gone up a hook size, but still refrain from pulling your yarn too tight. So give these stitches room to breathe. And continue like this. Can you see how I'm working this join? See that join there in the purple? This will of course be in white for you. Continue this until you're to the other side here. You see here I've marked the corner stitches. So continue with this slip stitch join, and then I'll just see you here for joining also to the next squares. I'm almost to the marked corner stitches. Got one more stitch on either side. I'm just going to work a slip stitch through those 2. There we go. And now we're at the corner stitches. So this one here is the center stitch of the 3, and this one here also. Then through the back loop, this side and on that side, and again close. Now you've completed the first join. Continue with your second set of squares and do exactly the same. So here I've marked the first 2 stitches. You don't have to do that, but it can help you. So again, the back loop on this side. So those are the corner stitches on this side. And again, make sure your yarn now stays below your work. And come to this side. So there I've marked the center of the 3 stitches. Grab the back loop. Bring them all together. And there we go. Complete that slip stitch. And now continue just like you've done before. So in the next stitch, either side, inside loop, and work a slip stitch. And continue with this until you're to the corner stitch on the other side. So you're going to continue this. So you see here's the join. Work this entire join until you're here, and then you'll have those 2 center stitches again joined, and then you can join your next set of squares. So repeat this until you're to the end of the edge. I'm now at the end of this, almost at the end of this join, so I've done this entire join here, and there's still just the corner stitches left. So I'm just going to do the corner stitch on either side. So that one, this one, and then a yarn over. There we go. If I had another set of squares, I would now take those and start on the next square. But I'm finished at this edge, so I'm just going to cut my yarn and fasten off. I'm just going to actually do a little slip knot here, so to just really secure this edge. There we go. And now we've done one edge, so we've done this one. I'll just zoom out to show you where you're at right now. So we've now done this edge. Now we're going to do this side here, so I'm just going to rotate everything. And what to do is here you join in exactly the same way, and you work this join, and then here in the center I'll just show you how to do the jump over. I like to do a chain 1 there. It's not necessary, but I do like to do that. So again, start by joining here on the corners, and then work this edge, and then I'll see you here. I'm almost here at the join. So I've just done this edge here, joining from the beginning, and I'm just going to show you the crossing point here. I've got 1 stitch left, and then there's the corner stitch, and then we're going to cross over. So I've got 1 stitch on this side, and then make sure that your yarn tail comes to the other side. 1 stitch on that side. Take off the slip stitch. Now we've got the corner stitch. Now there's already a stitch in there, so you're going to grab it on this side here, and then on the other side there's this little loop here. You want this loop from the top, and you do need to dig this out a little bit. There, that's it. And now yarn over for the slip stitch. Now I like to do a chain 1 here, and this is just to like jump over the join. Then on the other side I'm going to start with the join again, so the corner stitch, so that's this side and that side. So these stitches already contain the join from this side, so it's that one there, and pull through. And now continue as normal, 1 stitch either side. There we go. And now you can see how this is a nice and even join there. And then continue this join as you've done before. When you get to the end, cut your yarn and fasten off. When you've done all your borders, this is what your work looks like. I have of course a mini blanket, so I've just got one horizontal and one vertical join, but if you have more squares, of course you'll have more of these joins. But this is my mini blanket right now. Now I'll show you the border that we do. For the border, I'm going to do 2 border rounds. The first one, have the same color yarn as the edges here of the square. I'm going to start in the corner. If you look here at any corner of your blanket, you're going to have 3 single crochets there in the corner. You need to take the center one because that's your corner stitch. Now in the back loop of that stitch, work a standing single crochet. Now in the back loop of the same stitch, 2 more singles. So 1 and 2. So 3 single crochets in the back loop. Now come to the edge and work a single crochet in the back loop of every stitch to your next corner on the other side. So in every stitch, in the back loop only, work a single crochet. And this will give you this nice little edge here that you're actually also getting here from the join. So in the back loop of every stitch, work a single crochet, and I'll just show you how to deal with the join here. Just to the corner here, I'd just like to show you how to work the corner, because you're actually going to work a single crochet in the corners too, here on the join. So here you work a single crochet. This is the last one on this edge, and now you've got these 2. You can already see them, that loop and this loop, and they're the loops that you've got from making that join. Now work a single crochet on this square, and then come to the other side, and there you've got a loop 2, which is also, because these stitches already contain the join either side, and now you nicely bridge the join, and then continue and work a single crochet on every stitch, back loop only, until you get to your next corner. And that corner can of course be one here from the join, that one you just then skip over, but continue until you're to the corner of the blanket. Almost to the corner. You see here are the 3 single crochets that make up this corner of the blanket. Now the next stitch gets then only 1 single in the back loop, and the following stitch, that's the center stitch here, this one gets 3 singles again. So 1, 2, 3 singles, and then this corner is of course the same as the corner we started with. So repeat this edge on all your edges, no matter how large your blanket is, and then close on your first stitch. It's going to be here on this standing stitch with a slip stitch. I'll show you how to do that. All the way round, worked all these single crochets in the back loop, get this nice little edge here. Now join on the first stitch. There's your first stitch. Here's the slip knot, so just next to it, there, work the slip stitch. Now you're ready for the last row. The second round of the border is a round of crab stitch, and that single crochet stitch is worked backwards. I'll show you how to do that. And you're going to do 1 on every stitch. So don't have to do 3 in the corner, just 1 on every stitch. Chain 1. And now usually you would go forward when working single crochets, but now you're going to go backwards. And that means kind of twisting your hook a little. So you go backwards into the stitch. So there. Grab your hook. And I'm kind of rolling this stitch and work the single crochet. Again, see, I'm turning my hook, insert into the stitch, grab your yarn, rolling the stitch, and complete the single. Again, insert your hook, grab your yarn, roll the stitch, and work the single. And trust me, you really do get the hang of this. See how I'm already What works for me here is just holding my hook very loosely. So I'm just holding my hook very loosely when I do these stitches, because then I can more easily just make here this turning idea. And you do this all the way around, and this crab stitch gives a very nice edge here, and that's what we're going for, this rolling stitch edge. So one on every stitch all the way round. And when you get here, when you get right to the beginning, you're just going to just close in a slip stitch somewhere. It doesn't matter where, because it's going to be almost impossible to get into that first stitch. It's just literally hidden down there somewhere. So just when you get here, close with a slip stitch somewhere and fasten off. So just one more time, and then just go all the way around. So insert your hook backwards, grab your yarn, rotate the stitch, and complete, and go all the way round. There we go. And when you've completed your last border round, you see here this nice edge that gives, that crab stitch gives. When you've completed that, you're finished. Fasten off, work any way, any yarn tails you might have. This is the blanket, but I'm sorry, it just doesn't fit in front of the camera. It's just too large. But you've made all these squares, you've joined them all up, and you've made the border, and now your blanket is finished. I want to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon for a new project.